thank you so much for coming to stand with us today. Thank you for being a voice for those who can't speak for themselves. Is that okay? Okay. I want to come at this from a slightly different angle now. In 2015, in a speech to the UN Security Council, the British ambassador, Sir Matthew Rycroft, if I can get his name right, warned, how a society treats its most vulnerable, whether children, the infirm, or the elderly, is always the measure of its humanity, even more so during instability and conflict. When a society begins to disregard the vulnerable and their rights, instability and conflict will only grow. Okay, guys, just look around. We're in a time of huge instability. Just look over at that place across the road. Massive instability. We're in a time of growing violence here in our streets. Every day almost is a report of some awful stabbing. We're in a world where there is a growing threat of world war, and that's not exaggerating. And on top of all of this, the unborn are the most vulnerable in our society. So what is that saying about us? As babies grow in the supposed safety of their mother's womb, they can't speak for themselves, they can't defend themselves. So actually the reality, as often as not, is that we just ignore them. Our future, the very survival of our nation, actually depends on these children. And yet we treat them as disposable, to be cared for only if they're wanted and if it's the right time. And if it's not, get rid of them. Women have an absolute right to say what happens to their own bodies. And if they don't want to play host to a parasite, which is what some activists have actually described babies as, if they don't want these parasites, then get rid of them. The humanity of a society is measured by how it treats its most vulnerable. Really? If that's so, the only possible conclusion that we can come to is that as a society, we here in the UK are callous, we are cruel, and we are inhumane. 1 in 4 conceptions in this country already ends in abortion. That's 25%. A quarter of every child conceived dies. If these pernicious amendments that are now being put forward, seeking to decriminalise abortion up to birth, how many babies in future are going to win this deadly lottery? How many babies are going to get born? As a result of our abortion policies, we have a seriously declining population here in the UK. According to the ONS, that's the Office for National Statistics, our replacement level fertility is now 1.49%. The level needed for any society to continue to reproduce itself is 2.1% at least. So, okay guys, do the maths for yourselves. Increasingly, this callous disregard of the right to life for those who cannot defend themselves is tainting every aspect, every part of our society. We are becoming now a culture of death. A culture where only those who are deemed as currently useful actually have a right to survive, and where our unborn are regarded as commodities. Do you want this latest commodity? Is it going to fit in with your home? Is it going to fit with your lifestyle? Will it enable you to carry on with your 3 holidays a year? Do you really want this commodity? If the yardstick for our culture really is how we treat the vulnerable who cannot speak for themselves, then we are truly a callous, a vicious, a deluded society. We are devoid of all humanity. But you know, I don't think that's how people see themselves. Most people, if you ask them, will say, well, actually, I'm a good person. Everybody believes that deep down they are good, they are caring, they're compassionate. So this actually is a time of decision for us, for those guys over there, for this nation. And it affects not just how we see ourselves, are we good, are we okay, are we caring, but it affects the future survival of our nation, of all that we hold dear. We must reject these pernicious amendments that would allow children to be killed, even with no reason, up to birth. But we must also act now to stop this mindless slaughter of the innocent that is already going on. Friends, this is not all right. Our society is not all right. We are all wrong. The future well-being of all of us rests on those who are yet to be born, those who cannot speak, who cannot defend themselves. So let's start to value them properly as a nation, for their sake, but also for everyone else's, before it's too late. So join with me now in saying no to abortion up to birth. No to abortion up to birth. No abortion.